I'm Christelle from Diabetes Strong. In this video, I'll be going over 4 surprising and maybe somewhat weirdly specific things that'll make my blood sugars plummet. I've been living with type 1 diabetes since 1997, and given there is still no cure for diabetes, I've been managing my blood sugars using insulin injections since my diagnosis. And the thing is, when you do inject insulin, you're also at risk of having a low blood sugar, also called hypoglycemia, or in short, hypos. Hypos can be super uncomfortable. And if blood sugars drop too low, they can be really dangerous. So I'm very fortunate in the sense that I've never been in a situation where my blood sugars dropped so low that I needed help from somebody else to raise them back up into a healthy range. And hopefully I'll never be in that situation. And as long as I can feel my hypos coming on, I can feel the symptoms and I have access to the right technology. So I use a continuous glucose monitor, a CGM right now, that will warn me before my blood sugars become too low. So my hope is that as long as I, again, feel my hypos, have access to the right technology, I won't be in a situation where I have an urgent low. But you know what? When you manage your blood sugars fairly tightly, so if you manage them towards 100 or 90 milligrams per deciliter or even lower, you are at heightened risk of having a low blood sugar. But enough about all that. Let's dive in. Let's talk about those 4 things that will make my blood sugars plummet. And the first thing is vacuuming. It seems like I just have to pull out the vacuum from the closet and my blood sugars will start to plummet. That's an exaggeration, but you know what? It might be a sign that somebody else should be vacuuming for me. I do understand why it happens though. When I vacuum, I'm moving around, it's a repetitive movement, and I'm moving my whole body, and that type of activity will generally increase insulin sensitivity. And the thing is, I do not factor in vacuuming when I'm planning out my mealtime or my corrective boluses. So those are my insulin injections. And the reason why I don't do that is I usually don't plan exactly when I'll be vacuuming. So if I was an even bigger planner than I am, I would plan out exactly, 2 p.m. I'm going to be vacuuming, and then I would adjust my insulin levels to reflect that. But I guess I'm just not that structured. So most often, vacuuming is followed by a juice box. And the next thing that'll make my blood sugars plummet is swimming. So most types of aerobic exercise, so that's a type of exercise where your heart rate comes up and sort of stays elevated for a prolonged period of time, will make blood sugars drop. However, I have found that over the years, bodies adapt to certain type of exercise and the impact won't be as extreme anymore. Plus, for me, I've also become fairly good at adjusting my insulin levels. But the drop I see from swimming always surprises me. And to this story comes that I don't enjoy swimming that much, so I don't do it very often. I'm actually only really swimming if it's a really, really hot day, if I'm at the beach or by the pool and I need to cool down. So why does this happen? Well, the first thing is when I'm at the beach or by the pool, I'm usually lounging around. I'm reading, I'm sleeping, I'm talking to friends, but I'm not moving. And then I get in the pool or in the ocean and I start swimming, which is fairly hard exercise. So that contrast between doing nothing and then going over and doing something that's fairly hard or challenging really seems to hit my blood sugars hard. Another thing is that I tend to become really insulin resistant in the heat. And when I then jump in the pool, I cool down, and that seems to really boost my insulin sensitivity. But that's more of a theory, and it's just something that I noticed. I don't know if that's just me. And the third thing that'll make my blood sugars tank is going for a walk after lunch or dinner. So that one is not a huge surprise though, because often I pre-bolus, so that means I inject my insulin 15 minutes-ish before sitting down for my meal. I'll usually eat, enjoy my food, and I'll be out the door going for a walk maybe 60 to 90 minutes after my meal. And that just happened to be the time when injected rapid-acting insulin is working at its strongest. So it's not really a huge surprise that if I don't make adjustments to my mealtime insulin, I'll experience a low blood sugar. So did you notice I only mentioned lunch and dinner? I did not mention breakfast. The reason for that is that I'm usually fairly insulin resistant in the morning and actually need a lot more insulin to keep my blood sugars in range. I often exercise in the morning. So after breakfast, for a few different reasons, that's the time that works best for me and my schedule, but it's also because that's a time of day where I have the lowest risk of experiencing exercise-induced hypoglycemia. I do still have to dose a little less insulin for a morning cardio session versus a morning resistance training session. But that's just because the 2 types of exercise, so that's being aerobic versus anaerobic training, will impact blood sugars a little differently, so that's why they need different blood sugar management strategies. And managing blood sugars for exercise is in no way easy. I made a whole video about how to do that. I'll link to that up here so you can check that out. And lastly, another weird time that my blood sugars tend to drop is right after I brushed my teeth. Talk about annoying. And yes, I do check my blood sugars before I start the whole teeth cleaning process. But maybe one of you guys have an idea about what's going on here. My theory is that it's very similar to what's going on when I'm at the pool and then go swimming. I go from not really doing a whole lot to moving around. At the end of the day, I usually wind down by either reading a book or watching TV, and that's usually, down while lying on the couch. So my theory is that when I then get up and I go, get ready for a bed, my insulin sensitivity increases, and that's why I'm seeing that drop. And I do want to point out, I do not live in a mansion or a big house. It's not like I have to walk from one wing to the other. But it just seems that I don't need a lot of movement in the evening to see my blood sugars really drop. And those were 4 very specific situations where I often see my blood sugars plummet. So do you have any situation that you want to add to this? Do you have any situations where you see your blood sugars plummet, and maybe even unexpectedly? If you do, write it up and leave it down in the comment section below this video. And while you're there, if you like this video, please also give it a like. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, remember to do so if you want to see more content from me. Also, turn on notifications. That is that little bell. That way you'll be informed whenever I post new content. Thank you so much for watching.